This week I came down with a severe case of rearrangeitis and the only solution, building clamp racks. In my research of clamp racks, there was only 3 distinct designs. The actual implementation of each design varied from maker to maker, but only 3 distinct designs: breadth-wise storage, layered breadth-wise storage, and depth-wise storage. Clarify what each of those is. This would be your breadth-wise storage, where everything is stored width-wise, breadth-wise. So at most, everything's only 1 clamp deep. The advantage of this system is it's really easy to build. The downside is that it takes up actually a fair bit of floor space, and that's the main reason why I'm getting rid of this clamp rack. The layered breadth type storage is pretty much the same as this, but then there'd be another layer hinged. The downside to that type of system, as far as I can tell, is that invariably the clamp that you want is going to be the one at the back, and you're going to tend to arrange them in the lightest or shortest clamps on the outside and the deepest ones on the inner tier. So maybe a little bit more work to actually get to the clamp that you want, and you do have to have the room to swing everything around. The way that I want to build this particular clamp rack is the depth-wise system. So instead of being across the wall like this, the clamps will come out from the wall like so. I'm going to try and get the majority of the brackets made up from 1/4 sheet of form ply. Depending on where you are in the world, form ply might also go by the name of film face ply, HDO or MDO. It is plywood with a phenolic resin coating over top of it. This is used for concrete forms and things like that, but the quarter sheets are sold in stores like Bunnings, that's our big box store over here, for about $11 a quarter sheet, which for a 17mm piece of plywood is actually cheap in Australia. So they're very good for shop fixtures, not necessarily for jigs because they're not quite as flat as you might want from plywood, but they can be quite useful. The only downside is the treatment on the edges is just sort of painted on, so it's not necessarily a straight edge. So I'm going to straighten that up first with a track saw or circular saw, then take it to the table saw. The sheet was ripped into 3 equal pieces to maximise the amount of brackets I could get from it. My crosscut sled is a little small for this size cut. You can notice the stop block on the table saw fence as my reference point. The board doesn't touch the stop block and blade at the same time, so there is no issue with binding. The boards are cut to fit 2 nested brackets per piece. Using blue tape, I could gang cut the pieces and cut them all at once on the bandsaw. The point left over has little strength or function other than to stab me, so I cut that off with the miter saw. Just like with melamine, the edges of phenolic ply can be brittle and very sharp, so everything except for the back edge got a 3mm radius roundover. Gluing anything to the face of form ply is an exercise in frustration, so for the mounting board I used normal 18mm plywood. While I was at it, I cut 2 spaces to use for positioning the brackets when joining them to the backer. The brackets are glued, held in place with nails, then secured with screws. As this isn't the cleatist region of France, these are not French cleats but sparkling brackets. The 45-degree angles will interlock and hold everything securely up on the wall. The sparkling bracket is secured to the backboard with many screws, though later on I did come back and add glue. So that's all hung now. It's been hanging for a few days and it hasn't fallen down yet, so that's a good thing. I grossly underestimated the length of my medium-sized clamps. I had originally intended to put a second row of small clamps underneath. That didn't work out, so here's all my small clamps. This is all made exactly the same way. This is made with actually the material left over from the old clamp rack. I cut that up, and all my spring clamps mounted on a cleat as well. This can be reversed, so it's hung either way. And I stole that general idea from Don Bullock at WB Fine Woodworking. This definitely takes up less floor space. It's only about 350mm out from the wall, and given the clamp racks there, it's not a whole lot of useful space anyway. It does take up a little bit more width this wise because I haven't really densely packed these. Because I've got a variety of clamps, it makes it a little bit tricky to get the densest configuration. If they were all the same type of clamps, it'd be a lot easier. Overall though, I'm very happy with this layout because it's really kind of opened up the workshop. I don't have this monstrously tall clamp rack in my way, and everything actually feels a bit more spacious in here. There's no dimensions for this because it's pretty straightforward, and if you've got different size clamps it may not work anyway. But if you must know, it's about 300mm deep, 180mm tall, so that I can get 3 strips out of a single quarter sheet. Each pair is 45mm apart, and then the space in between each set of those is 100mm. And that's just so that the clamp heads can fit without knocking each other. Thanks for watching. How the heck am I supposed to hang up a band clamp?